location, amenities, a variety of homes, cash flow, a good deal to be had, all the reasons why people choose to invest in New Braunfels, whether it's short-term, mid-term, or long-term rentals. We've worked with several clients who purchased their primary home in New Braunfels and then turned around and purchased multiple investment properties in New Braunfels. So today, in today's video, we decided to focus on investing in New Braunfels in the event you want to pull the trigger on an investment property here in New Braunfels. We cover some of the hot neighborhoods in New Braunfels to invest in, tell you what you need to know before pulling the trigger. And we're speaking with one of our clients who has several investment properties in New Braunfels. We're finding out why he and his wife decided to invest in New Braunfels, what kinds of things they look for before purchasing, and how are their investments paying off today. If you are new here to my channel, thank you so much for coming aboard, because every week we're putting out relevant and timely information just like this about what it's like to live in New Braunfels. You're thinking about investing in New Braunfels, but you don't know where to start. What can I get a home for? More importantly, what can I lease it out for? What's the tax rate in that neighborhood? What about the HOA fees? So we decided to do the research for you based on the criteria many of our investors use within city limits, 78130, anywhere from 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 to 3 bathrooms, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, and a house that will rent for $1 or more per square foot. All right, before we jump into the hot neighborhoods in New Braunfels to invest in, and before we get to our investors' advice, there's a couple things you have to know. Banks are going to require you to put down 20% on investment properties unless you're paying cash. Why? Because banks know it's a big risk. If you get in trouble financially, the bank knows that you're going to pay on your primary residence first before you do on your investment property. And number two, this is a big one. Investors do not qualify for homestead exemption in Texas. That's why it's critical to find a neighborhood with a lower tax rate. All right, let's hit some of the hot areas in New Braunfels to invest in, city limits. Now, there are more than we're highlighting here today, but these are the neighborhoods sticking out based on lower tax rate, rental price per square foot, HOA fees, and the lower median cost of a home in these neighborhoods. Let's go over the criteria just one more time. We are looking at single family homes in this video, anywhere from 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 to 3 bathrooms, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. And these homes are located within city limits, 78130. And we're going back 6 months for these comps. Why? Because in a fast or slow market, you want to keep things as accurate as possible, these comps as accurate as possible. It's your investment after all, so you have to keep things as current as possible. This is the criteria our investors are using. The first neighborhood is a hot investment neighborhood. It's called Heather Glen, and it's a closeout community, meaning new construction home building is wrapping up. It's on the growing east side of New Braunfels. You have grocery shopping, restaurants, big box shopping, specialty stores, and schools close by. And a 130-acre city park is planned for this area. Let's get to the numbers. The average price of a home in Heather Glen is $282. Tax rate is 1.77. HOA fee is $400 a year. All right, so now you have to turn around and rent this. That's the purpose here, right? Okay, so median rent here is $19.50 a month. That's based on 4 beds, 2 baths, and median square footage of just over 1,600 square feet. So we're well over $1 a square foot in Heather Glen. Staying on the east side of New Braunfels is Oak Creek Estates. Median price of a home in Oak Creek Estates is around $350, based on a median 2,000 square feet, averaging 3 beds, 2.5 bathrooms. Tax rate is 1.77. HOA is $508 a year. The rental numbers for Oak Creek Estates, median rental here is $2,200 a month, based on an average 2,100 square feet, 4 beds, 2 baths, again, over $1 a square foot. Let's head closer to the Creekside shopping area. There's a neighborhood up the road called West Village at Creekside. It's established, closed down community, no more homes being built here. Average price of a home at West Village at Creekside is $349, based on an average 2,100 square feet, average 3 beds, 2 bathrooms. The tax rate at West Village at Creekside is 1.77, and the HOA is $450 a year. The rental numbers for West Village at Creekside, average rental is $19.50 a month, based on an average 2,000 square feet, about $1 a square foot there. So it's based on 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. A 4th bedroom here gets you on average another $250 a month in rent. Here's a popular neighborhood with families, whether they're purchasing or renting. It's on the southeast side of New Braunfels. It's called Avery Park, off State Highway 46 East It's an older neighborhood. Average price of a home at Avery Park is around 304 based on a little over 1,700 square feet and based on an average 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Tax rate at Avery Park is 1.82. HOA is 508 a year. Rental numbers at Avery Park. Average rental here is $19.90 a month based on a little over 1,800 square feet based on an average 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Again, over $1 a square foot at Avery Park. Just a couple more hot, notable investment neighborhoods to consider in New Braunfels before we jump into our interview with our investor who is loaded with advice on short-term, mid-term, and long-term investment properties in New Braunfels. We are staying on the southeast side of New Braunfels for the last 2 neighborhoods. Both are older communities. The first one is attractive for many families because there's a huge city park right across the street. So you can walk from Dove Crossing, the neighborhood we're going to talk about, to Fisher Park. The average price of a home in Dove Crossing is around $315, based on an average just over 1,900 square feet, and that's based on 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms average. Tax rate at Dove Crossing is 1.77. HOA fee is lower here, 304 for the year. Rental numbers for Dove Crossing averaging just over $1,800 a month on an average 1,700 square feet. That's based on an average 4 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. Again, that's over $1 a square foot. About a mile up the road is another hot investment neighborhood in New Braunfels called Voss Farms. So hot that I burned my hand just writing the stats for this neighborhood. Average price of a home here is $274, based on an average just over 1,500 square feet and an average 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Tax rate is 1.77 at Voss Farms. HOA is lower, $385 a year. These are some eye-popping investor numbers here. One of the reasons, price point, it's much lower, and there are schools within walking distance. But does all that translate to rental numbers, to how much you can get for rents a month in Voss Farms? Let's check it out. Average rental at Voss Farms is just over $2,000 a month, and that's big. That's based on an average square footage just above 1,800, and that's based on an average 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. That's $1.11 a square foot. Those are some of the hottest neighborhoods in New Braunfels for investors. Next up, what we're waiting for, speaking with our investor who decided to, with his wife, put down roots in New Braunfels to build their primary house and to invest in short-term, mid-term, and long-term investment properties in New Braunfels. So we are giving you right now an insider's view on what they consider, what factors they consider before making a decision to invest in New Braunfels.
Eric, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're busy, you have several investment properties. So the first question is, why did you guys decide, you and your wife decide to invest in New Braunfels? We have Austin, we have San Antonio, we have San Marcos, we have Seguin, all these attached cities. Why New Braunfels?
Well, for years and years, especially since we've been in Texas for the past 30 years, we've always come across literature, publications that have mentioned New Braunfels. And New Braunfels has always been rated and ranked the top 10 small cities in the state of Texas. And we would frequent the hill country a whole lot and just love the area. We also love the fact that New Braunfels is conveniently situated between Austin and San Antonio. Yeah. So that was a big perk for us as well.
So we talk about New Braunfels fast growing. We also have the amenities. The amenities plan, we have 2 rivers, we have lakes, we have that historic downtown and historic green, not too far from Bernie and Fredericksburg. All those things kind of play in saying, look, these folks are getting a lot of tourists. They're getting a lot of people who need a place to land, either short, mid, or long term.
Right. And that was another reason why we decided to choose New Braunfels. In addition, we're planning to reset our roots down here. So investing in an area where we're actually going to be living, because our rental properties we self-manage. So being a close proximity to those rental properties was very important to us.
Let's talk about that. You guys have quite a diverse portfolio. You have short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Why the diversity in investment properties?
Okay, that's a great question, because the state of the housing market right now really calls for rental properties, especially people who just aren't able to get into home ownership. It's hard. It really is, especially if we are looking to finance. It's very difficult. So we wanted to provide an intermediary so that people can come in and maybe rent for 6 months, 12 months until they're able to get into a home of their own. Short term, well, that's really based on experience, because when we'd come down to visit New Braunfels, we stayed at some area hotels and just weren't really pleased with the quality and the comfort. In addition, when we travel, whether it's overseas or domestically, we like to utilize the short-term model.
And we're standing in one of your investment properties. So you have several in this area. We're at Creekside, Freiheit area. So you have condos, you have cottage-style homes, and you have a couple in South Austin. Why decide to focus on this Creekside, Freiheit shopping area?
Well, because we see the potential. Here, for example, in Sam's Landing, 4 or 5 years from now, it's going to look totally different. And they're doing a lot of these diverse properties up in North Dallas, where we currently reside, and we see how successful they are.
Okay, so part of that is the growth. Obviously, Topgolf is just breaking ground now. Sprouts Market is coming soon, and everything that's going on with Sam's Landing, including the new entertainment venue that just broke ground, and all the restaurants expected to come. So all of that, and how walkable this area will be with the trails and the new trails added. Did that play a part in this park and ride or park and walk type atmosphere? Did that also play a part in saying, you know, this is where we need to be? Because 5-10 years from now, like you said, it's going to be a whole nother ballgame.
Right, absolutely. Because when you vacation, you want a vacation where in an area where you're not going to be reliant on self-transportation.
Right.
Especially here in New Braunfels, where you have green and the different festivals. For example, Worst Fest is going on now. Right. People want to be close. Worst Fest is 3 miles away from here, so people can call an Uber if they'd like to partake in the festivities and come back within 3 miles.
How much did this market that we're in right now, before I get into how are you doing with all of these investment properties, how much of being in this slower market helped you and your wife decide, hey, we should invest now? Because the buyer demand isn't as high, rates are higher, deals can be had in New Braunfels because of all the newer construction, the new construction homes, and somewhat, you know, a few years old. But how much did the market play into you making that decision to pull the trigger?
A lot. Everything really fell in place for us, timing wise, perfectly. But yes, the market was very helpful and to allow us to get into this area, and especially with the number of properties that we were able to pick up.
I know some people out there saying, you know what, we're going to wait until the rates drop. But the danger in that is, well, when rates drop, property prices go up.
Right. And they will. And we've spoken about this before. As you know, I really feel that they will go up.
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly or how much, but I certainly believe they will.
So buy low when the market's low, and then, of course, if you want to sell high. Right. All right, so how are the investment properties doing right now? Are all of them occupied? I know you have some short-term rentals, so that's, you know, day to day, but what about the midterm? What about the long-term investments? Everything
is doing really well. Of course, timing comes back into play, right, since we purchase these properties and furnish them during the slower season, but we are definitely filling them up on a short-term basis and long-term basis as well. So we're very pleased.
What are some of the other factors that were in play for you and your wife before you decided to pull the trigger on these short-term, midterm, and long-term investment rental properties? Is tax rate one of them? Because as an investor, as you know, you don't qualify for the homestead exemption, so your property taxes are going to be what they're going to be. Right. So was tax rate one of them?
Absolutely.
An HOA, so you have to figure all that stuff in?
Right. We put everything down on paper prior to committing to any type of investment. But here in New Braunfels, tax rate was definitely key to making our decision.
What was important to you, tax rate? Be below 2?
Ideally, it would be wonderful if we could stay below 2, and we were able to do that here, at least in Creekside.
Okay. So when you're financing, because do you have a mix of, you paid cash for some and you financed others?
Right.
Okay. So you have to be a little bit more conscious when you're financing, or at all times?
I mean, at all times you do, because you put everything on paper and see what it's going to take to cash flow. And you have to look at the market as well. Not only short terms, midterms, and long terms, you have to combine everything, because each of them are different models. Short term is more hospitality. Midterm, you're pulling from the healthcare industry. and long term are people like you and I.
What do the banks require? If you're an investor, how much down do the banks require? And what's the rate right now for investment properties?
That's a great question because it really just varies. I would say the banks aren't going to accept anything less than 20%. They're certainly, it's going to be more attractive if you can put more down, anywhere from 20 to 50+%.
Okay. And then as far as the rate, if you're financing, where's that at right now?
Right now we're around 8% right now.
And you knew that going in.
Absolutely.
Where the market was. And so, but it makes it a little bit more, there may be a soft landing at some point when rates are expected to go down maybe this month and in December by a quarter basis point. So that looks a little bit better. At that point, will you refinance the financed investments?
Yes, that's the goal. We'll refinance anywhere from 9 to 18 months from now.
Okay. And then you'll just realize that savings
Right.
right off the bat. Yeah. Will you lower the prices of those monthly or daily rates, or just, okay. All right. How do you figure that? I mean, you have short-term rentals, you have midterm, 1 to 6 months, you have, 12 months. So how do you figure, okay, when do we increase the rent? When do we increase the per night stays at the short-term rentals? What goes on in your head? What kind of thinking is that?
Right. Well, it's very difficult. But in today's day and age, we have some great platforms, especially pricing platforms. When it comes to short-term rentals, we utilize Price Labs, and that does a lot of the work for us. It pulls data from area short-term rentals right in this proximity, and it helps us to compute the daily rates.
What's it called?
It's called Price Labs.
Okay. One thing we talked about is that, did this market help you out? And obviously it did. Does being in New Braunfels help you out? Because you must have seen information that we have all this inventory and you're like, hey, this is a great area to invest in. Was that one of the factors?
No, we really weren't too concerned about inventory because we did have a game plan and not really concerned about competition, just because we feel if we're going to invest into something, whether it's monetarily or time-wise, we're going to go full force forward.
But you're in an area where it's not overly saturated by rentals too, and that helps you out.
For sure.
Did you look at other areas around New Braunfels that might have been potential, but you said, you know what, too much competition?
Not in terms of competition, just because up and down the 35 corridor, there was so much growth. As I mentioned, Austin to the north and San Antonio to the south, and everything is going to fill in. But we did look at other areas such as Kyle, Buda, and they just weren't as attractive as New Braunfels, with New Braunfels having all the amenities, entertainment, and then all the master plan communities are being developed now. That was definitely attractive to us.
So as investors, you guys you're looking 5-10 years out?
Well, at least.
Is that the strategy?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you go by what you research, like what the growth is expected to be? One report says in 10 years, over 70% of the population will live within 5 miles of I-35 between Austin and San Antonio. So is that part of saying, okay, this makes sense to us?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a matter of doing research on paper, on the internet, speaking with professionals like yourself, and also driving around, getting into the community and looking at the developments and seeing the progress, going into new home communities and speaking with the sales consultants, and just really getting in there and firsthand.
Is it an instinct? Because you're looking at all these properties, right? You're like, we got to pull the trigger on something because this is what we want to do. We're building our primary house in New Braunfels, but we have to be successful here because this is our livelihood right now. This is our retirement as well. So what is it in the end that triggers you and your wife to purchase something? Because you go from let's think about it to, yeah, this is good.
I think it's a combination of things. Location, our own inner drive, and the way we look at things. And if we decide to take on a project, we'll take it on 100% and stick with it. That's one thing about being self-employed or entrepreneurial. It's not just an idea. You have to talk the talk and you have to walk the walk.
All your investment properties in New Braunfels are focused in on the Creekside, Freiheit area. We're known for our rivers, so why didn't you and your wife purchase an investment property close to one of our rivers?
Well, the simplicity mainly. We wanted all the properties close to each other so that janitorial could get into the properties easily and turn them over quickly. In terms of maintenance, yard maintenance, all of our properties maintenance are taken care of by the HOA. In addition, we wanted to stay away from the rivers because we were looking at smaller size properties and we really didn't want the liability of being off the river and the liability that comes with some of the river activities.
Anything else you want to say? Because what you're saying is gold to many people watching right now who are considering purchasing an investment property in New Braunfels. Anything else that you want to say?
Yeah, I would say if you're considering New Braunfels, certainly come on down, look at the area, and look at the potential. There's a whole lot of demand for nice short-term, mid-term, and long-term rental properties here, especially with the influx of people, not only here in New Braunfels, but along the Texas Triangle. Tremendous opportunity.
Some great advice from our investor, plus covering today some of the hot neighborhoods for investors in New Braunfels. Does this information help you out if you're thinking about investing in New Braunfels? Do you have any questions? Reach out to us, please. Also, you can reach out to us in the comment section below. And whether you plan on purchasing an investment property in New Braunfels or your primary residence in New Braunfels, or you plan on selling your house in New Braunfels, any of those, I'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can email me, you can call me, or you can shoot me a text. As always, thank you so much for coming here and watching our videos, and we'll see you on the next one.